Oh, g'day champions. We're in a little bit of a tweed stint at the moment, so we've got two more here. You know the thumbnail. We've got a Achillies NYX, and we've got Artist Tweedtone V. So they're both 5-watt single-ended 6v6 output stage based amplifiers, based pretty heavily on the 5F1, the Fender Champ. Such a famous amplifier. But they've got a few more bells and whistles, so let's see how they implemented that and the difference between the two, because they're kind of at other ends of the budget spectrum. You've got the Tweedtone V for $249, which is pretty insane considering you get a Celestion speaker and an all-valve signal train. And you've got the Achillies, which they've got a few options on their website. I'll show you the website shortly. When I jumped online and spec'd out this one and then factored in shipping, it was $23.99 for the amp itself with all those options, and then $50 shipping to my location here. So I kind of like the idea of being a little bit of a teardown channel, because a lot of this stuff, a few people mentioned a lot of the review channels, they don't even take anything apart. So I think you kind of need to get the full story on how long something's going to last, how well it's built, and just the general pride in workmanship that company has or does not have. In this episode, we'll just do a teardown and assessment. In the next episode, we'll do sound samples. Achillies is, I believe, built to order, but I think they do batch orders for retail outlets, because I have seen them in showrooms as well, new models. This particular Achillies is in for repair, so I won't be powering it up just yet. I'll do a separate video on the issues with it, but we'll do the sound samples once it's been finished, because the quote's been approved, and we'll compare the two side by side. We might even do wacky stuff like swap the speakers over, test them with each other's speakers, and see what the difference is. Who knows? The world is our oyster. Alright, so on the Achillies website, we've got one Apollo NYX 5-watt with all the options that this model has in the cart. $22.99. Add shipping info. New South Wales. You know where the shop is. Oh, hang on. Low IQ moment. Copy, paste, delete, estimate shipping. $50 shipped by weight. Express post $159. So somewhere around the $23.50 price range, depending on your shipping option. That's to here. I don't know what it is, but it's not Achilles' responsibility where you live, so you can't really factor that into the pricing. So essentially $22.99 plus shipping. And now we're on the Artist Guitars site. $249 for the Artist Tweedtone 5, 5 stars, blah 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 blah. All the hype man stuff. And then plenty of these as well, customer returned. It says here, customer returned due to experiencing a faint static noise, but when assessed at our warehouse, we were unable to reproduce the fault. So it may be an issue, it may not be. Could be the customer. I think these guys are sort of like no questions asked returns. So let's have a look at what it said on my actual unit that I purchased. Okay, so on my actual unit, it said, about this customer return Artist Tweedtone 5-watt tube guitar amp. Customer return due to a change of mind. This is a customer return. We've checked it all. We checked it and think it's in pretty good condition, but it has been shipped to a customer most likely used. So there is a possibility of blah, blah, blah. But that's a lie, because you're about to find out why. So here's a look at the two little buggers. We've got obvious design differences. We've got an MDF cabinet on this one. Oddly, it looks like the top is thinner than the sides, but we'll have a closer look at the construction after that. You've got the tweed cover that you see on like the classic series from Peavey, so it's actually a vinyl, not a fabric itself. The Achillies is more of a typical Fender style cabinet. Looks like an overgrown, like almost like a Princeton size 10-inch driver, but the typical sort of tweed style construction with the narrow panel top and bottom, and solid pine, apparently finger joined. Hard to tell in the join, but they market it as finger joined, and it's got a proper lacquer tweed finish. It looks like a sort of light shellac that they've used on there. Now on the Artist, obviously you got like plastic stuff like the Pilot light is one of those fake chrome plastic things. It's got a plastic logo. Whereas Achilles has gone with, it appears to be a cast metal logo. It is metal of some sort, probably zinc. And it's actually 3D, and it's got some paint in the recess, and then the front's brushed, which is a very cool look. And it's a nice big recognizable logo too. They've done really well there. You know, your typical Fender logo is about this big. My one's a tiny little badge thing, but these guys really want to get their name out there, so they've thrown it across half the cabinet, which is pretty smart from a marketing point of view. And it's got your oxblood sort of Fender looking. It looks pretty authentic actually, the grill cloth. You got stainless steel mushroom head screws holding the baffle on the front through the top and bottom panel. And you've got a 4-screw faux leather handle, which in my opinion is actually better than the leather ones, because they fail quite often, even on pretty lightweight amps. And on the Tweedtone you've got a typical vinyl and pressed metal end cap handle with a metal strap in the middle of the vinyl rubber. So on the Tweedtone you've got presence and volume, and you've got a boost and normal switch. Now that doesn't have a nut to the chassis, that's just poking through, so that might be a PCB mounted switch. In which case you'd have to be pretty gentle with it. And this looks to be one of those Switchcraft, I forget the series, it's not coming to me, S15 something X switches, which would also be circuit board mounted, I dare say, but we'll find out more when we open it up. Now, a bit of a weird thing is the power switch goes left and right as opposed to up and down. I'm assuming that's how they build them all. I don't think anyone would have got in there and turned it around. And looking at your NICS controls, you've got the input there. A low and high switch, which reading the literature appears to be simulating the 1 and 2 input, just with a switch and the single jack. You've got a bright switch, I'm assuming just a bright cap across the volume, and we've got a drive switch, which offers some form of boost, which we'll have a look when we trace out the schematic. You've got a standard volume pot, no clicky on, clicky off, because it's got a separate power switch. And you've got a Fender style, proper metal dual there, and an incandescent indicator. Now a quick look at the rear construction. You've got a full panel with a cutout made out of feels like 12mm MDF on the Tweedtone. 4 fixing screws, none across the top. Pretty firm though, firm fit. Made in China. And that's where the power cord is stored, is that IEC lead. We'll find out shortly. You've got what appear to be stainless screws into stainless cup washers, or at least nickel plated cup washers. All in all, the finish is pretty damn good. The corners are nice. To be honest, nicer than I've seen on some boutique-y stuff. And on the NICS, we've got a typical Fender sort of setup. 2 small cutouts there, ventilation cutouts. Feels to be 6mm ply, I think. There's a light lacquer on the inside, just sealing the timber up, which is good. That's something I do as well. But again, no cup washers. You've just got countersunk raised head screws just going straight into the Tweed there, which isn't brilliant, but the Tweed seems to hold up to it pretty well unless you go crazy with an impact driver. So the key is, don't go crazy with an impact driver, eh? So let's take these covers off and we'll see what they're hiding. No shielding foil on the back cover. She's not the highest gain air, but almost borderline got to take off points for that. Wouldn't be hard to put a just piece of copper foil across, or aluminium foil across there. Adhesive, you know, the stuff you see on the Fender amps and whatever. Just give her a little bit extra shielding. Alright, no shielding on that one either, but that's kind of not a surprise if it's $249. Alright, so a quick look at the guts of the Tweedtone. You've got PCB construction with a horizontal PCB. You've got valve bases mounted on the circuit board. They appear to be also screwed to the chassis as well. You've got radial caps all around, quick connects for pretty much all the connections. You've got a valve shield, which is nice for the preamp valve. A 6v6 that's literally jammed against the speaker. Like, you wouldn't be able to remove that without unscrewing the speaker. So it's not great. Yeah, like you would not be able to take that out. Like you need at least a pin length clearance, and that is physically forced. You can see as I move it back and forward, it's actually making the chassis move up and down. So to change that valve out, you'd have to remove that speaker. It's just 4 screws, not the end of the world, but it's, yeah, it's you could have moved the speaker probably down another ½ inch and gotten away with it, but anyway, moving on and having a quick look at the nicks. We've got your typical Fender style construction, sort of, except it's got a what looks like Garolite turret board. It's got some cloth covered wire there. Looks like pretty much everything that's not attached to a transformer is cloth covered. They've got some coax running from the input jack to the grids of V1, so that's kind of cool. Not the highest gain amp, like it's not super critical, but you know, every little bit helps. You got carbon composite resistors in the front end, a wire wound there, which is actually hugging the bypass cap. The bypass cap, which is ridiculously large for the value, it's only 25 microfarad, 25 volt. Normally, the V-Shea ones I use are about 1/8 the size of that resistor next to it. The next thing that strikes me is that resistor's 1K. The standard value for this is 470, but I tend to like around the 560-ish mark, 680, depending on the valve, and depending on the mains input and the transformer. It's all a big fit together thing. You got Sprague, I still don't know which way to pronounce that. Adams, there is the second and third filter caps, 8 microfarad each, and a 16 microfarad Achillies branded. It looks like an F&T with Achillies branding. I'm not sure if F&T offer that as a standard service or what, but it's branded by the amp manufacturer. Alright, so you've got the active coming in from the mains, which is down on a strain relieving gland down there. That comes in and goes to the ring of the fuse holder there, and then from the tip of the fuse holder you've got a suppression cap. Looks like an XY class or X2 class cap to ground, with some bus wire just twisted around a PC pin and soldered, and on the other end you've got a bus wire terminated, kind of hard to see, but down to the transformer mounting hardware down there. Now you got the similar looking spot welded chassis to everyone else, and you got funny rust spots there, which seem to be on all of them. That was on the J20, the Lazy J, the other day as well. Inside of the front panel was like rusty. Now it's easy to say, oh, this is a custom chassis because it's got the extra switch holes, but remember that a stock Champ only has a fuse, a pilot light, a volume knob which also doubles as a power switch, and a single input jack. So this could be an off-the-shelf Champ kit chassis as well. So they've put the fuse down on the bottom to make room up on the top panel, and next to it's the switch for solid state versus vacuum tube or valve rectification. So this has got looks like a new old stock Marconi Radiotron 5x3 made in Canada, and it's got a Genelex, appears to be a new old stock made in Russia 6v6 GT. Although, is that 17, is that a date code there? 1707, is that 2017 or is that 2007? Don't know. If someone could chime in the comments, let me know, would you? And we've got a GE12AX7 made in the USA. And on the inside we've got a build date code of 2017. It says number 3. I wonder if this is the number 3rd Nix that they built. Don't know. If you guys are watching, just let us know in the comments. Okay, so here's a view of the top of the chassis. Got our transformers here. I'm not sure of this one, but this one says Mojo, so I'm guessing that's a Mojo-Tone replacement. The labels look the same on both, so I'm guessing that's a Mojo-Tone output transformer as well. I'll look up those codes momentarily. This is interesting. For the ground of the speaker, they've taken it and just soldered it to the casing of the transformer, and just the single wire goes in and connects to the speaker jack. I don't know if that was a way that Fender used to do it, but I think there would be better ways to ground that. Just run both cables. I mean, there's plenty of room in that grommet, because now you're relying on a lacquered, you know, transformer housing with no tooth washer or anything in between, and then a chrome plating. So not the greatest ground connection, not the most reliable. And of course, if you lose your speaker connection, you can have a flyback issues in the output stage and bust your transformer as well, break down the insulation. Having a look at the termination of the speakers, they actually pass through, which feels good. A little hook on there and soldered. That's what I like to see. And they've got Kep's nuts on the baffle, which is good, means they're less likely to loosen themselves off. The tweed is all straight cut and everything. Everything looks well done, nice and tight, and nothing coming loose. It's got a Celestion G10 green back in there, 30 watter. It's actually one of the made in the UK ones, you can see on the sticker there. It's got some flat washers as well as some Starlock washers, and then your nut behind that. The Starlocks don't do a hell of a lot when they're against a flat washer, but I assume they're putting that there to stop it from chewing into the powder coat and making the speaker look terrible if you want to change it out. Or just, you can still see it when you tighten it up, you can see that the screws munched up the powder coating a little bit when you've tightened it up, and it doesn't look fantastic. You got a black finish to the back of the baffle, and as mentioned earlier, the inside's just got like what feels like a single or maybe two coats of lacquer just to seal it, which is good. Now we'll get into the circuit and everything momentarily, but just one quick thing on the turrets. To me, the idea behind a turret is you connect your wires, you wrap your wires around the actual turret, and then you pop your component leads through the top. And the idea behind that is all your infrastructure for your circuit's set up and the wiring's wrapped around the turret, and then if a component fails, you can just desolder it, pop it out of the top, pop a new component in there for serviceability. When you do it like this, the part you don't generally need to remove, the wire, is easy to remove, and the components are an absolute dog to remove because they're wrapped around the turrets and down underneath everything else. So yeah, with turret construction I do it the other way around. I put the wire around the turret and the component through the top, because to me the component is the thing that needs to be serviced. If your wiring needs replacement and servicing, then you've probably done something wrong in the first place. We've got some, I can see some backup diodes on the rectifier socket down there, which is good. And there's our solid state rectification switch. So looking down in there, that's a really small switch. I'll need to get a mirror to figure out what voltage rating that actually is, but I can just about guarantee it's not rated for the application here. So looking down there on my mirror, I know it's in reverse, but bear with me. 3 amp 250 volt AC. Generally you've got to derate pretty heavily even the DC, not so much the current, but just the DC rating of the switch in general. So that switch just literally bypasses the rectifier altogether via that diode, via those diodes down there. Sorry, it's a bit hard to focus on everything. You can see one diode down the bottom there and the other one right there. So that's coming off the HT secondary windings, the red wires there. Then via that switch, that's just simply bypassing via that yellow wire straight to the B plus node, then to the first cap. Down in there you got some metal oxide droppers, gone with 10k, 22k, and we've got a socket here which I believe goes to the foot switch for a boost circuit, which introduces this capacitor, which is a 1 microfarad non-polarized, but again we'll draw all this out on a champ schematic and show you what's going on. So it's an alpha volume pot, nothing fancy there, and just a cheapy ceramic for the bright cap, which is just across the resistor wiper there. So that's a 250 pico. With stuff like this, you'd think you'd want to see a bit of insulation on there because that could short out. Might pop a bit of heat shrink on there while I'm stuffing around. And just stuff flown above the board. So it looks like they've used a stock layout and then added the options afterwards. Got genuine Switchcraft jacks on the front and back and the RCA. They've got those ceramic valve sockets. Now someone sliced into these carbon grid stopper resistors here. So I know this has been a previous tech, and maybe they were just sussing out the values of the grid stoppers there. So all the grounds everywhere are to the transformer hardware, including the main safety ground there. I'd like to see that with its own dedicated either bolt or solder to the chassis, because the transformer can work its way loose, getting thrown around over the years, and you've lost your safety ground. It's more of an issue on larger transformers. These ones are a little bit less of an issue because they're so small. But I just like to make it a general rule, just to not fix to the transformer hardware at all, because I've seen it come loose so many times. Interesting, you can see down there the switch. It's sitting on the lip of the chassis, this little folded piece. So what have they done? They've just grabbed a spare nut and just jammed it in there and tightened it on that. If that comes loose, it could short stuff out. That's no good. And there's bits of metal swarf floating around in the chassis too, which again, short circuit hazard. Not great, particularly at this price point. You'd think they'd at least give it a blast with compressed air before they send them out. And although everyone loves to see the Sozo logo, from a tech's point of view, I know it's nitpicking, but you kind of lose points from putting the value facing down. But they put value facing up elsewhere, so I'll give the benefit of the doubt. They were just trying to show off the Sozo, you know, the gear page forum caps. Forum caps, that's what we should call them. But to Achilles' credit, they haven't wrapped any components with heat shrink, they haven't gooped anything, they haven't painted anything. They're pretty honest about what it is. They're not trying to say they've reinvented the wheel. It's a champ with some mods, you know, and it's not like they market it as anything dramatically different from that. Alright, so we'll put the Achilles away and onto the Tweedtone. So you can see straight away, MDF construction. You got cleats, actually made out of plywood. So they probably rabbit them into the into a slot in the MDF that's on a CNC. You got the screws there for screwing the grill cloth on, and it appears that the baffle itself is just nailed and glued to the cleats there. Those front cleats are MDF, and the back cleats, I guess they assume that this might get unscrewed over the years, so they put plywood on the back where it's removable, and then just glue and nail gun on the baffle. So it's got a Celestion 815 G8C15. So I think I've seen these for about the $70 mark, but I'll look that up. Alright, so I'll undo these screws to get to the chassis. And we'll see what we can glean from that. So once again, those speaker terminals are ridiculously loose, so if you do one thing to one of these, fix that up, because you're going to kill your output transformer if you don't, and possibly cause damage to the PCB. That was like not even finger tight. So having a look down inside the cabinet, they've misaligned this cleat here for the baffle, and they've just tried to fire a nail down into the void. Good try, champ. So that's not the strongest, but it's holding on surprisingly stubbornly. It's amazing what glue and a couple of nails can do. So all in all, the cabinet is about what you'd expect for this price range. I've seen similar construction on a lot of practice amps, that kind of thing. Oh, they've taken a fillet out of there. It must have been trying to hit something. So, you know, it is what it is. $249, can't really complain. If you wanted to take it apart and reinforce it with some timber cleats or something, I'm sure that wouldn't be too hard to pry off and clean up with a chisel and drive a few wood screws into that MDF. So I'll put that cabinet aside and have a look at the chassis. Alright, so that's what the fillet out of the baffle was for. They've got a little strain reliever there for the mains. So they must have put that a little bit too close and it was hitting the baffle, so nothing a little chisel can't fix. They've actually got a real JJ's 6V6S. As for the preamp valve, we've got a Ruby 12AX7A. Alright, let's flip over and have a look at this PCB. Alright, so we've got a double-sided through-plated PCB, which is good. We've got quick connects everywhere except for the heaters, which is good. You got heater supply there with quick connects, but this isn't a very high current amp, so there's not a lot of heater current happening there anyway, so not the end of the world. You're not going to get burnt connections like you do on like 5150 heads and whatever. You got some shielded connections there carrying the audio, which is good. You got generic like 16mm PCB pots, so you could replace them with alphas or anything, which is good. You got a tiny little PCB switch there, so as I said before, that's got no mounting fixtures to the front panel, so you got to be careful with that one. You've got your typical Fender style box jack there. This one's actually got a metal thread all the way though, which is again good. You've got what appears to be a V-shaped metal film resistor there, 470, so I'm guessing that would be the cathode resistor. Actually, wait. Okay, hang on a minute. So they said customer return. This has actually been refurbished. So that's been installed by someone after the fact, and you can see there's a burn mark down there. So this has had a shorted valve. So this JJ's would not be stock. This would be a replacement. Previous valve shorted and taken out. Probably the cathode capacitor and resistor, and they've replaced them at some point, and then just sold this as customer return. So it's actually been repaired. So this would have been a warranty return. I guess they didn't go that deep into detail. And actually, you know what backs that up? There's little bits of that brown fur everywhere from the exploding cathode capacitor. You can literally see where it's blasted from this area here. It's blasted its crap around the gland there. That's what happens when electrolytic caps explode. They leave this brown fur everywhere. So this has been repaired from a shorted valve that's taken out the cathode. Go Artist Guitars. Selling a repaired, refurbished amp as just a simple customer return. And you can see down here on that fuse holder too, there's all sorts of residue from that exploded cap as well. Losing points, Artist. You've got our 200 ohm resistors, which would be our heater balance. They're measuring about 50 ohms, so that's what you'd expect. Got a 10k dropper up here, which would be your first node, or second node, the first being B+. Measuring 970. Got another 466 ohm, and a 462 ohm, which is the replacement. So all in all, the construction looks pretty good. Particularly for the price point. I was expecting way more scabby than this. You got a sticker up here that says pass QC, so don't worry about it, bro. It's all good. Yeah, is that a genuine Nichicon cap, I wonder? Because I'd imagine that wouldn't be cheap. Because Nichicon's good quality. But I've got a feeling maybe that was replaced as well. But it's got the QC pass sticker on, so maybe not. Don't know, legends. It's a mystery. It's an enigma. Considering all the other caps on this model are the BGG revered Suscon. Nothing sus. So all in all, I'm pretty impressed, providing the transformers can stand the heat. Not literally heat, but, you know, get out of the kitchen kind of deal. This could be a reasonably reliable amp. I'll see if there's any reason that maybe that valve shorted. I can't see that there would have been. It was probably just dodgy quality valves. Generally, JJs, as long as they've got a vacuum, are still pretty good. So we'll pop this back into it. We'll give it a test. We'll compare with the other one and have a bit of fun with it, champions. I'll start practicing guitar over the next couple of days to prepare. Alright, so looking over it, the Achilles is pretty much exactly this. The only difference I didn't write down was the heaters are actually run with a grounded center tap. That cap is there. Originally it was there because you had the two-prong plug. So if it hummed one way, you turned it around and it didn't hum the other way, so that's the way you left it. There is no reason to have this cap there anymore. They just followed the schematic. It's not America. We don't have unpolarized two-prong plugs, and we certainly don't have venues without a ground pin, but, you know, even if we did, that wouldn't help anything. It's literally the only reason it's there is to reverse the plug if you end up mixed up with your neutral and you're active on a non-polarized plug. Oh, excuse me. I'm choking. So this is what the high-low switch does. It just simulates switching into jack 1 or jack 2, and you just flick back and forth with the switch. You can see there it's got no connection on one side, and the other side it just links the two channels, which just puts two resistors in parallel with each other. Here they've gone curiously for a 33k in one position and 68 in the other. Everywhere I'll put a tick, that's a value been confirmed to be the same as the original. Here's the bright cap. It's just a 250 picofarad across the volume pot. Here's the drive switch. It's just a 1 microfarad 100 volt non-polarized, adding some bypassing to the driver stage. They've changed the value of the feedback resistor to 10k from 22, so that will give you more negative feedback. Now that might be because of a different transformer model. It might be an 8 ohm. I didn't even check that. Should have a look. And you've got a 1k 5 watt down there, so this thing's running at about 65%. I did give it a quick check when I did the quote. So that's way cold. Again, there seems to be massive confusion between the bias targets for fixed bias and cathode bias. This should be running at least 100%, 95 to 100%. So 65% is with that 1k 5 watt. So we'll see what a 470 does. But all of that will be in the next episode. All the filter nodes, the dropper resistors and the filter caps are the same value. So essentially it's a 5F1 with a couple of mods. This thing's another story, however. So straight away with this bad boy, we've got a 220 microfarad 450 volta there. And then we've got a 47 microfarad 400 volta there. And another 47 up the front end. And another 22 there. So this thing is filtering city. Let's see if we can find a schematic, because I don't really feel in the mood to trace this whole thing out. Aha! A clue! That doesn't say Tweedtone. And that doesn't say Tweedtone either.
Now, after some searching online, I found this brand, Fame Tube 5. Search for the silkscreen markings on the PCBs, and it said Tube 5. What you often get with a lot of these brands is they're manufactured in China, and then they find their target demographics in different countries by, you know, different aesthetic designs, different target markets. Like they might market it as a harp amp or a guitar amp or whatever, but you can see here that looks remarkably similar, that panel. It's got the same switch in the same spot, slightly different jack, but still got presence and volume in the same location, same cheesy power light. But see, you've got the top and bottom are thinner than the sides again. The sides are slightly thicker, but yeah, interesting. So looking at the guts, tube 5, right? I couldn't find any original schematics or, you know, unannotated photos. So this guy is on a harp amp page, and he's got a write up on these with some modifications. You know, he mentions not extremely cheap. Maybe at some point the Fame was the same amplifier but offered at a higher price. Not sure. Maybe our overseas viewers can help shine a bit of light on that. But look at this one, actually. That's got the switch in the same direction, left and right. It's got this large cap here that they've heat shrunk and just thrown a radial cap. I don't know, maybe they've thrown more filtering at it. Hard to tell. But it looks like they've suffered the same fate here. It's had 2 watt. Man sagt hier das 1 watt. So, I don't know, I don't speak German. So yeah, apparently it had a 1 watt previous. That looks like a pretty large 1 watt resistor though, but point being, that's been replaced. They put a 3 watt in its place. I recognize those resistors because I've got them in stock. Having said that, no, the cap exploded, so it definitely had a failed valve, and that's why you've got the JJs in there. Sorry, I just like to triply confirm everything that I'm saying in my own head. Anyway, it's fun, this video making stuff. It's that's short for no quaaludes, QDs. Do not operate if on quaaludes. Okay, that's what that logo means. Anyway, moving on. So there's another view. Oh, yeah, it's just had some nice hot snot action. Again, that resistor's blown. Someone's replaced it with a metal oxide. You can see that heat damage on the board underneath. This one, actually, they've removed the circuit board altogether and done point to point. I don't know whether there's any real advantage to that, but, you know, hey, whatever floats your boat. If you want to spend a week on this amp, go for it. And there's the back view showing this one's actually got a Jensen. It's funny when they say special design. If you got to say it's special design, it's not special design. It's like with whiskey when they say it's special reserve. No, that's just your shittiest blend. Anyway, you can see the construction's the same. This one looks like a much deeper cabinet. Look at that. The valve's totally clear of that magnet. And you're looking... That looks... It's hard to tell the depth of field, but that looks like it's a good 2 or 3 inches clear of that speaker magnet. So at some point they've compressed the cabinet right down, and now the valve's actually kissing the magnet itself. But as I mentioned in the text above the video before, a quick way to sort that out is to just put a Tube Amp Doctor 6v6 STR in there, because the bottle's a lot shorter, like by a good inch. So you'll be able to actually remove and reinstall that one, but it doesn't help you when you've got to take this one out by either removing the chassis or the speaker. So, but at least now we know the genesis of this thing. And if anyone has any experience with Fame Tube 5s, like in terms of the time frame when they were released, how long they've been on the market for, I'd really be interested to know. So chuck a comment down below, and I'll bloody say g'day and have a good old chat. So here's the schematic. the famous, the best Chinesium text block you've ever seen. So it's showing passive, active. There's a few differences on here, and old mate's thrown his notes all over it, so it's a bit hard to see stuff, but you can see the 220 microfarad 450 volt there. You can see the weirdness. They've got a 100 nano film cap in parallel with the main bypass cap, and a 1 watt. They've specified 1 watt 470R. 1 watt ist so Wein. To I know Parko's going to kick my ass if he watches this, because I can't speak German, let alone Swiss German. But he's throwing caps in all over the place. He's throwing a cap in there, possibly to tone down oscillation or just tame the top end. Not sure. I can't read any of this, but this is the schematic. And that's about all the time I'm going to spend on it. It looks like nothing like a champ. It looks like a completely different beast altogether. Totally different filtering, totally different dropper resistors. There's filtering happening here. There's all sorts of shit going on. So she ain't your average champ. But anyway, take a screenshot of that. I'll zoom in for you. There you go. I couldn't find the PDF or anything. As is often the case with Chinese amps, there's just like no record of them ever existing. It's really weird.
So pretty interesting seeing two ends of the spectrum compared side to side. So join us on the next one. We'll do some sound samples, a bit of testing. We'll have a bit of fun with it, and try to get a few giggles out of you on the way. Now, I know some of you have no sense of humour, but, you know, we can't account for all of you, so, you know, maybe try smoking a joint or something before the next one. That's all I got to say. So until then, legends, take it squeezy.